Exploring theology, doctrine, and all of the fascinating subjects in between, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, Dead Men Walking starts
now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dead Men Walking podcast. I'm your host, Greg Moore. You can find us at DMWpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, sharing with a friend, coming along on the ride. Trying a new show format here to where I do a little intro and then we get right into the guest. That way they don't have to sit through live reads and things like that. But we do want you guys to hear about what we've got going on right now. Sponsors, you've heard about them a lot. Jacob Supply, brother in the Lord. It's that time of year. Projects are in full swing. And you know what that means. You got to make the trip to Jacob Supply. Whether you're a contractor or builder or just checking the things off the to-do list around the house, now's the time to visit them. Listen, guys, this is what they do. They bring you roofing supplies. They bring you metal roofs. They bring you barns. They bring you appliances. They bring you lumber. All these things at 30, 40, 50% off retail. They buy out at the wholesale price and pass those prices on to you. PVC decking, $2.99 a linear foot. Composite decking, $2.35 a linear foot. Treated decking, 65 cents a linear foot. I mean, all kinds of great stuff. They have Core-Tech flooring right there, luxury vinyl, so cheap. Had to change the ad because his competitor came to him and said, hey, we don't even get it that cheap because he sells more than anyone else. So Jacob Supply, make sure you check them out, guys. Striving for Eternity. We love Andrew Rappaport. We love Striving for Eternity. You can find them at strivingforeternity.org. It's a discipleship website. They do they do weekend seminars. They'll teach you stuff on theology, doctrine, apologetics, much, much more. Andrew's traveled the globe as a scholar and as an apologist, and Striving for Eternity is someone and something that we absolutely think you should be part of. So go check them out at strivingforeternity.org. Guys, thanks so much again for listening. Let's get right into it. I mean, wow, this week had a great guest on. And we're going to get to him here shortly. Craig Sawyer. The guy's a, former Navy SEAL. Well, actually once a Navy SEAL, always a Navy SEAL, but Navy SEAL, sniper, combat instructor. He's worked on films and television, has a documentary out. He was a technical instructor for History Channel. I'll let you tell him the shows, or I'll let him tell you the shows he was on, all kinds of stuff. But man, he has a nonprofit now called Veterans for Child Rescue, really focusing on child trafficking. And I got to tell you, some of the stuff that he exposes on here, he made a statement like hundreds of thousands of children have been trafficked. Children have been trafficked by the U.S. government. And I almost, my jaw dropped. I said, wait a minute, what? And he referenced some of the Senate proceedings and documents that you can check out to where, child trafficking is alive and well, unfortunately. And the federal government's in on it. Elites are in on it. We have the whole Epstein Island thing that went down a few years ago. No one thought that was possible. And he's saying, no, it's more widespread than you would even believe. The spirit of murder and lawlessness is alive and well in the United States and across the globe. So we talked about that for quite a while. We got into also the Trump assassination, tactically what he thought happened there and why it failed and how it should have never happened in the first place. We also talked about the single shooter theory and the second shooter and the water tower and his ideas on that. He's gone over hours and hours of video and audio, and we got his tactical expertise on that. But it was a good episode. Man, I'm just grateful for guys like that are fighting that fight. We live in a depraved world. Obviously, our trust, our hope is in Christ. We know that justice is going to be served. Every knee will bow before Yahweh one day. Until that time, we keep doing our part. We keep bringing glory to God in everything that we do. Even if it's not something like, Navy SEAL like Craig does. I mean, you hear that, sniper, Navy SEAL, combat training and combat trainer. And you think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Look at the Lord commands us to not only disciple nations, but also take care of our little part of the kingdom, whether it's in your community, neighborhood, outside your church, your family. And so be encouraged. I just had a late birthday lunch with my mother. My mother called me up and said, "Hey, your birthday was a few weeks ago. I want to take you out for lunch." We found this nice little spot in Monroe. The gentleman's from Spain, had all kinds of good Spanish food there. I mean, just one of those kind of upstart businesses where you go, man, this place is going to be booming in a few years if people find out about it. And we talked for a long time and love visiting with my mother. She's a woman of faith, very encouraging. And it always comes around to that. We come around to look at, sometimes it can be overwhelming for us when we see all of the injustice, evilness, and wickedness going on in the world, but we have to believe and we know that God is sovereign and that justice will be served one day. And that's kind of what I was thinking about during this interview with Craig. I mean, he talks about some stuff that he's seen, some stuff that at a very high level within the federal governments and within countries of, perversion and rape and pedophilia. And sometimes it can become a little much and you just go, Lord, come quickly, set everything right. But let's not forget too, that we are all sinners in the eyes of a righteous and holy God. And let us come to him humbly, thank him for his saving grace, for his forgiveness, repent of our sins and move forward and do what he has called us to do, preaching the gospel and all those things. So I didn't want to take too much time on this. As always, guys, you can find us at DMW Podcast. Go there, check out the merch that helps support the show. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the show as well, too, we would love to have you. We do have a little conversation with you first to make sure you're a good fit. We want to make sure we're promoting people, businesses, men and women who own businesses that have the same worldview, that are pulling in the same direction. But you can contact us there. As always, too, there's a new link in the description. You can send us a text message. Click on that, shoot us out a message. If you've got show ideas or guest ideas or just want to comment on an episode, we love to hear it and we'll share it if appropriate here on the podcast. So guys, appreciate you, love you. And let's listen to Craig Sawyer. Here we go. Yeah, Craig, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate your time. I mean, Navy SEAL, sniper, combat instructor. You've worked on films in Hollywood. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Just your experience in that sector? Very interesting.
You mean in the entertainment side?
Entertainment or just in general, as like I said, as a Navy SEAL, as someone who has been through it. I mean, you're an interesting guy. You're like that meme for the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world.
Thanks. Well, it's been a wild journey, and it's sometimes surreal for me when I try to relay to friends what all I've been through. It sounds like I'm making things up until I'm able to go back and show them photo albums, and they're able to see where all I've been and what I've really done. But look, I'm blessed to have worked with so many great people over the years and several different agencies. I've been to 60 countries all around the world. I mean, there's just a lot of work that's been put in. And I've learned a lot from that. And I think that it was all for a reason. Nothing was wasted. So now, I run Veterans for Child Rescue, and I'm seeing where everything that I've been put through was really kind of dress rehearsal and preparation and experience that prepares me for the mission I do now. But, the Hollywood stuff, that was just meant to be a paycheck where I was home with my family more here stateside rather than overseas. Running high threat mobile security or counterterrorism ops or whatever we were doing, even counter poaching ops in Africa. So I wanted to be home to raise the children more. And I thought, well, I've got friends in film and television. Let me just technical advice. Let me just teach actors to do a better job in the movies so that they're not so goofy. And they kept pushing me in front of the camera. I did all 5 seasons of History Channel's Top Shot as their most frequent on-camera expert. And I helped them produce the show and get a bunch of vehicles and weapons and ammo and all that. And then I did 3 seasons of Gunny Time with Arlie Ermy. He wanted me to take over and actually host the show. That was really cool. I just loved working with him, and I was always grinning and laughing. People are saying, Craig, you're always like grinning from ear to ear. I'm like, I'm making TV with Gunny. I mean, how cool is that?
Right.
So that's really all that was about, mostly firearms related TV shows and that kind of thing. So
was that a hard transition from Navy SEAL and kind of combat training into entertainment? Because I mean, it takes a certain type of intestinal fortitude and a certain type of personality, I would think, to even want to try out for the Navy SEAL program, let alone then follow through with it and be successful in it. How was that transition? Was there anything you picked up there that helped in the industry, or
Well, yeah, I
no?
mean, when you were able to test and evaluate and develop as many weapons as I had
Mm,
as a sniper at DevGru, it makes you particularly handy on shows like Top Shot and
yeah,
Future Weapons and Gunny Time and Top Guns and Sniper Deadliest Missions and all the different ones that I was involved in. I could get them shots and perform with the weapon in a way that they could get on one take with the camera. So you got a huge crew, maybe not enough time before the sunlight goes down behind the mountain range, and they're like, Craig Sawyer, we didn't calculate for this much time. We got to capture this shot. We need a lot of light, and we got time for one take. Well, they found that I could give them that one take. I could give them the shot that they were after with the first take, and they didn't have to go into the next day and rotate their schedule back and cost a bunch more money. So that ended up being very valuable. So
mm,
in that sense, first of all, the professionalism of being when and where you're supposed to be and being prepared, all always obviously transfers through. But then I just really enjoyed it. So I got to give them those high speed camera shots where you see the bullet come right by the camera in perfect
yeah,
clarity, with the perfect lighting and everything that's spiraling right by. I mean, that's artwork what those guys did, and I got to be a part
yeah.
of that specific part of it, and it was something new that they were doing, and I got to be right in the center of that. It was huge fun. So anyway,
Yeah, I've always marveled at the difference. You don't really appreciate the technical side of a movie or a show that is doing it correctly until it's not done correctly. Does that make sense? Like I think of
yeah,
big budget films versus low budget films. I think of a low budget Steven Seagal movie versus, let's say, a Jack Ryan series on Amazon Prime, and you're watching tactical situations, gun handling, those type of things, and you don't truly appreciate the attention to detail until, in a good film or TV series or movie, until it's not there, and you go, oh wow, these guys, the actual experts, have been there and done that and understand the differences, advising either actors or directors or producers, makes a big difference. So I would have to think that's pretty fulfilling as well too. Working in
Uh,
the entertainment industry and making sure it's done professionally and with excellence.
you're exactly right, and that's the whole intent. Is it is entertainment, and so if you look at it from that perspective, you realize you want the viewer to get lost in the fantasy, lost in the story, and just be able to enjoy it and check out for a while, for an hour or two. And it's when something's wrong, when you see that it's an actor doing something poorly, it kind of shocks you out of that fantasy, and it kind of ruins the experience. So you want it to be natural and realistic and just flow so that you can go just enjoy the whole thing and go afterward like, wow, like you took a complete ride to somewhere else. Like, what's that one that was it Mel Gibson that did it? Apocalypto or whatever it's called. The
I think
um,
so. Yeah.
yeah, they really give that one, high marks because it's like you get totally lost in that. You don't feel like you're looking at actors or anything. Apocalypso, I think it was called. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just that's the intent. So yeah, that's what a technical advisor is there for, is to help it work.
Yeah, so you had a life of service in the military, and we thank you for your service. And now, Veterans for Child Rescue. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how you're
Yeah.
giving back in that way?
Yeah, well, when I learned that child trafficking is a covert operation run domestically at industrial scale, so the US government
Wow.
is, with our tax dollars, trafficking children. And it's not only the US government, it is the Mexican drug cartels and many other criminal networks trafficking children. And they're losing hundreds of thousands of children, and they can't tell us where they've gone because I believe that they're dead.
Mm,
But a very dark situation. And so when I learned about it 10 years ago, I tried to make a documentary to expose the whole thing. And nobody in film and television would help me make that documentary. They shined me on, and none of my friends and contacts would help me. So I founded Veterans for Child Rescue to rally the money because big tech wouldn't let me crowdfund the money to make the documentary. They were actively countering and combating what we were doing, trying to stop us from raising the money to make Contraland. So I had to found a 501c3 nonprofit organization, Veterans for Child Rescue, just to rally the funding to make the documentary Contraland, to alert the people to what's going on. And I
Wow.
thought that once the people knew, that they would rally up against it and say, oh, heck no, we're not going to let this evil stand on our watch, and would drive that abuse out of our culture. But what I found over the next 7 years, what the American people are largely lacking the moral courage to face the truth. They don't want to see it. It's not that they don't care that children are being harmed, is that they lack the moral courage to acknowledge it and see it. So they cover their eyes and their ears and they say, it's not happening. It's not happening. And they run, actively turn their heads from the truth. And that's what's allowed evil to prevail, because good men are doing nothing and allowing it. So really our job is turned into it just as much alerting the populace and combating the problem, arresting the predators and putting them in prison. It's really just as much shaking the American people awake and going, you can do it. Stand up and say no. Write your elected officials, call them, get active, help us do something about it, because we have a slumbering populace right now who's just now starting to wake up to the fact that we've all been ripped off and lied to about so many things. So it's like morning time for the United States right now. People are just like rubbing their eyes and going, wait a minute. They've been lying to us. Yes, they have. Yes.
So I want to circle back on something. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say the U.S. governments and other governments are trafficking children? And if so, why? Or why isn't that mainstream news?
Well, Tarlee Rodas and others from Health and Human Services have briefed Congress on it. So you can go watch the videos. And anyone, I encourage you to watch those hearings, because it'll be informative for you. Knowledge is power. I want you empowered. I fought to defend the American people. I love the American people, and I want them empowered with the knowledge. So please go and watch what's been happening. So she was exposing the fact that Health and Human Services are contracting companies like MVM, who contract to the federal government on covert operations, and they're paying them to fly and bus children who are unaccompanied minors. They call them, in other words, children who don't have their parents with them. They're putting them on buses, they're putting them on planes in the middle of the night, and they're driving and flying them to other airfields and landing in places where small airfields where it's illegal to land past midnight. They're landing at 2 and 3, 4 in the morning, which is illegal. They're landing with illegal tail numbers that register to businesses that have been out of business for years, companies that have been out of business, and with illegal FAA manifests that say cargo when 20 or 30 children are taken off. All of that's highly illegal. It's run like a covert narcotics operation. And so the FAA has to be witting to this, because they wouldn't tolerate that. So this is going on every day. And so the FAA has to know about it. HHS knows about it. Obviously, the FBI knows about it, because it's their job to. And obviously, the CIA knows about it, because the companies that contract to them are the ones moving the children. So we've got a corrupt federal government to at least some degree that's been running this. And since Tarlee Rodas and others briefed Congress on it, it has not stopped. So just because it's been the notification has been made doesn't mean that the correction has been made. So that's what we see now. Whenever a director of an agency is caught red-handed and he's grilled by people like Matt Gaetz or Eli Crane and asked very honest and factual and pointed questions about their jobs, you realize they don't know their jobs. They're not doing their jobs, and they don't care. And they're not going to give a straight answer, and they're not going to get handcuffed and hauled away for having failed and having lied about it. So that's demoralizing for the American populace. So we've got a deep swamp to drain, and that swamp does not want to be seen, let alone drained. So there's a lot of work on our plate before us, but the good news is we, the American people, are the most powerful entity in this constitutional republic. And we have representatives who are supposed to be representing our best interests. And when they don't, it's our job to swat them out of the way and replace them with those who will. We've been failing to do that. We've taken our hands off the wheel and let the demons drive the bus, and the demons are driving our bus into every obstacle out there. So we're finally starting to wake up and go, whoa, hold it. This isn't working. Yeah. So we're having to roll up our sleeves, and like our founding fathers intended, we the people begin driving the bus again and make a more sane, productive, honorable, legitimate, peaceful United States back out of what we have. Because right now it's being systematically destroyed like ravenous zombies, like demons that are just tearing everything apart like there's no tomorrow. So we have a fight on our hands. It's fifth generation warfare, as I'm sure you know.
So maybe this is public, or maybe you can give me your opinion on this. What is the point of governments trafficking children under covert ops like this, taking them from one place to another in the cover of night? Why does the U.S. government need to be involved in this, and what are they trafficking the children for?
One thing is wealth. Other thing is power. And if you look at Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, they were running an intelligence collection operation. It's called a brownstoning operation in the intel community. So it's a type of blackmail. And the job is to target individuals, bring them to a remote location where there's every manner of extravagance, and they can do whatever they want. And they feel like there's no law enforcement there. And it's a completely, different society in a controlled environment, a castle, an island where there's, wealth and it's exclusive, and they feel like they can do whatever they want. And they end up being on video doing stuff with people that they can't afford to be seen by we the people. And then from that night on, the people that hold that video of them control them, not you and me. And that's why that's why we're not getting what we vote for anymore. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
There's wealth. There's a lot of money being made trafficking the children because they're worth a lot of money to sickos. And there's organ harvesting. That is a real thing. And then at the very darkest end of it, you do have people that are into satanic ritual abuse, and they have ceremonies where they torture children to death. And that's the sickest, darkest part of it. And that's what we believe is happening, why hundreds of thousands of children are just missing. They're not showing up in homes. They're not showing up in schools. They're not showing up anywhere. Federal government's not even saying that they're investigating and trying to find them. Years ago, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, they said, oh, we lost 85,000. Oops. And they've never said there's an investigation, and here's one that we found. Here's 1,000 that we found, 85,000. So it's been several 100,000 at least that they'll admit. And where are they? Right.
So this is what's always been confusing to me, and maybe you're shedding the light on something I didn't know. You had all this problem trying to get just a documentary through, and I'm sure you have some people that are, at a certain level within Hollywood that have some money and power, and then you see like films that Jim Caviezel just did, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that had a lot of money and a lot of backing and a lot of power players within Hollywood, and that only got so far to where you had mainstream media and a lot of people in Congress and even a lot of people on the left and right saying, "Oh, we don't want to see this movie. It's no good. It's racist. It's this. It's that." And it was a story about trying to stop child trafficking. So we see it sometimes at the local level, and I'm a locally elected county commissioner since 2016. You'll see lip service given to child trafficking, but it will mostly be focused on prostitution, which they now put into child trafficking. But as soon as you start getting into these upper tiers where you can reach either mass media, or the masses in general, or you start getting to the federal level or global level, it seems to be squashed, and there's no taste absolutely for wanting to stop this. So when you tell me something like governments are trafficking in children, it seems like that would be the status quo. That's why they don't want to do anything that would really change that. And then we have you doing the Veterans for Child Rescue. What is it specifically that you're doing? And do you see a danger in this, that you might have a target on your back because you're fighting against something that's, like I said, elitist, globalist? It's at the federal level. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. First of all, as far as any threat, I don't care about that. The danger, it doesn't
Mm.
motivate me. I'm not wired that way. I've faced the worst terrorists this world's ever seen, and highly decorated combat veteran, SEAL Team 6 operator. And I've worked inside the intelligence community, and I've run high threat mobile security division operations in the war zones for years and years. And so someone coming after me, that's not a motivating factor for me. I look, I am a follower of Jesus Christ, and I love
Mm.
our Creator with all my heart. I love my country because it was founded on godly principles, and
Amen.
I will be obedient. And King David was the baddest warrior that ever walked the face of this planet. And now the strongest SEAL Team 6 snipers, the most fierce warriors that have accomplished the most that I've ever met in my life, we pray together in a way that is just completely wide open to the Father. And we are obedient servants of His. So when you walk this planet as a child of the Most High God, you realize, no, He spoke everything into existence. So when you realize there's no created being that can even comprehend the full scope of their creator, let alone
Yeah.
overcome them, then there's no conflict. There is no spiritual war. Well, all there is Satan throwing a temper tantrum before his clock runs all the way out. And
Yeah.
once you comprehend it in that level, you can go, okay, men are going to lash out and they're going to fight back and try to keep from getting caught. Well, that's fine. I'm okay with all that. I'm used to the conflict. So that's not a factor for me. They squeal and they hiss and they try to attack, and it's fine. I'm ready to go home to my Creator right now. What a beautiful thing. What
Mm.
a beautiful day it'll be. But until I'm there in His arms, I will fight those who are making war on children. I will. And exposing them is the biggest thing. We are called to expose evil. And the worst thing that can happen to a covert operation is it get compromised. And that's what I mean to do. I mean to compromise the enemy's covert operation, trafficking children at industrial scale domestically inside the United States right now for the rest of my days. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's rancid and it's nasty what these people are into. And the more you find out about it, I mean, I'm a practical guy. I've been around, I've stood in mass graves, I've seen tyranny, I've seen communist, Marxist, socialist destruction and genocide, and it's horrific. But man, what's being done to the children right now, right here, is unspeakable, and
Yeah.
it's utter evil, and we have to fight it. It can't be okay that a nation allows this at industrial scale. My God, it's generating more revenue than all pro sports combined, and our sports industries, that's big money.
Huge.
So how many
Yeah.
children are being harmed,
Billions.
and in what way that would generate that much criminal revenue, man? So we have to first, just like emergency wound care. Boom, you pull over, there's a wreck, you're going to go help somebody. First thing you got to do, they're bleeding and they're in shock. You got to
Yeah.
expose the
Stop the
wound and
bleeding.
figure out, well, yeah,
Yeah.
what all's, they have exit wounds. Where do they need help the first? And that's what we have to do with evil and corruption too. We got to expose it and go, okay, what are we looking at here? What are we dealing
Yeah.
with? Aha, here's the level of corruption. This entire agency is bad, or this whatever, this division is bad, or here's the nature, or we've got all these satanic worshipers that are infiltrating different institutions and just turning everything rancid, and they're slaughtering children. Like, what kind of dysfunction are these people into? Well, that's their
Yeah.
beliefs. They think they get, superpowers from doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, and a level of trauma and horror upon the most precious and innocent. No, by the way, that's why they do it. It's
The
it's the
innocence.
children of
Yeah.
the yes, it's the innocence. And that's a spiritual aspect that just will shake your soul once you really get close and you start to comprehend why it's done. You're like, okay, as a warrior, how can you look away from that? I won't look away from that. I will attack those that do that. And how any other warrior pretends like this isn't happening and, can do anything else, I don't understand. I mean, I think we all have a different calling in this life, but that's mine. I want to expose it. I want to rally and recruit 340 million Americans to all stand up and say no to that,
Yeah.
and start legally flipping some tables over and saying, nope, you've got to get out of our nation with that. That's got to get out of our culture. It's not okay. We can't have that predation in any way, shape, or form. The children are precious, they're innocent, and they are worthy of protection. And that's what the heck we're going to do. We're going to let them learn and grow and play in an innocent, protected environment until they're 18 at least. And this life's got enough challenges once we're adults.
So what are some of the specific things, if you can get into it, that your organization is doing? Is there lobbying? Is there activism? Is there actual, I don't know, takedowns, or what, because I'm unfamiliar with it. So for the listeners listening too, if they want to get involved, what is Veterans for Child Rescue specifically doing? Or pragmatically
one really good eye opener is our documentary Contraland. It's a high quality documentary. I urge you all to watch it. You will be more empowered for having known what is in that documentary film. It lets you know how we got here, why child trafficking and pedophilia has been normalized, and who's behind that, and how that takes place, right? How we got here. And you'll see what happened to our daughter and our family's fight and all that beautiful aspect of it. And you'll laugh and you'll cry. And anyway, so there's that. So we run joint sting operations with federal and local law enforcement. We got 27 child predator arrests so far with a 100% conviction rate. Every predator that we've arrested has gone to prison. Not one of them has gotten off yet. So we're very careful in the evidence and what we collect and who we prosecute. And we've got 87 warrants now for more. They've already committed the crimes. Law enforcement just has to go and kick the doors or make the high threat traffic stops and put the cuffs on them. So it's a battle. We have a corrupt news reporter right now that covers for child trafficking and covers for organized crime ring in Nashville, actively, aggressively, frantically, I say, attacking a police department there in desperation to try to keep them from making these 70 arrests that they already have the evidence on right now. So that's an ugly war. That's when you see like this demonic serpent, when you've stabbed it and it's hissing and squirting and spraying, and that's what it's like when you get close to evil. And you're like, why would someone be against the arrest of vile and aggressive and abusive child predators? Well, the reporter don't want to answer that because he's probably one of them.
Yeah, that's my first thought, is you're either in on it or you're compromised some way.
Yeah.
You know,
and
either
it
you
speaks
share
for itself. I mean, even all of it, a lot of his own followers are starting to go, dude, what are you about, man? It's just weird. So I think he's hanging himself legally, and it's just people who are evil are sick-minded. They can't think right, and thank God they can't really preserve themselves. This guy's rushing to his own legal demise, it seems, but we'll see how that plays out. But it's evil is strange, man. It's just dysfunctional.
Well, I mean, John even says that, you know, in the last days, whether you believe we are in them or not, where your eschatology lands, he says the spirit of Antichrist is lawlessness. And that exactly what this kind of action is complete lawlessness, unrighteousness, no regard for life or dignity, the lust for murder and harming of innocents. And that's what you see in trafficking. And, you know, anyone with common sense and two eyes, and I think that's why a lot of people are being woken up to, have, like you alluded to, being lied to by media and institutions and corporations for quite a long time. And I think the internet kind of helped with that. I think they thought they could control the internet for kind of mass programming, when in fact, you know, as soon as you put out one thing, another thing pops up on the internet. And it's been very useful for exposing lies. It's also been useful for some horrible things as well. But when we see people waking up now and realizing, oh, when we see these child trafficking cases and pedophilia and things like that, a lot of times it's people in really positions of influence and power. I mean, producers and financiers and billionaires and congressmen and congresswomen and things like this. And it's not really this kind of, you know, off in a corner on a seedy, in a seedy house somewhere happening to one child. It's on a mass scale. It's with powerful people, and it's widespread. So, you know, I agree with everything that you're saying. And I think the listeners need to understand too, this isn't as, you know, it's not as quarantined as we think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And that's how a lot of these people get those positions. They subscribe to groups. They want to be these are people that may not be able to succeed by merit, by the merit of their performance and their effectiveness. And they are desperate to belong and fit in somewhere. So they will agree to be in to groups, and they'll be targeted because of their weakness of character and their greed, right? Their desire to be wealthy and powerful, and they'll be seen and approached and recruited. And a lot of times the price of admission for these secret societies that JFK warned us about before they assassinated him was as these people who they want to be a part of a group, and the group will install them in positions of public power or wealth, corporate positions, political positions, legal positions, things like that, and even in the entertainment industry. But they will swear allegiance to the group. They'll usually, initiation means they're going to have to do something that the group's going to hold over them for security. They may say, hey, Wilbur, you want to be in our group? That's cool. We know you'll do great. You just have to rape this boy right here. It's just, we've all done it, but we have to have it on video just for our own security, just so you don't go squeal, because, we're a secret society and you're going to have wealth and power and we can hook you all up and you don't have to worry about anything, but just rape this boy. And, it's cool here. We're not judging, just that's what we do. And so then they hold that over him so he never exposes. And then there's worse and worse, and it gets to where they're slaughtering children in highly demonic rituals and just things that we're learning about that you would hope would only be in a bad movie, but actually humans have resorted to throughout human history. It's not new; it's ancient, and it's happening for the same ancient reasons. And some of the same ancient demonic entities are motivating it, and it's being done at their request, their demands, really their compulsion. So the more we learn about it, the more we're like, just can't get far enough away from it. But we have to confront it to fight it. I don't want it to prevail. I want it exposed so that people understand it. The problem is they kind of don't have the moral courage to face it. So we'll have to just expose it to those who do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anytime people want to argue with me, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? We're so technologically advanced. We're a civilized society. I say, look, at the spirit of murder is still alive today as it was 5,000 years ago, or however long instead of doing it on an altar, we do it in the womb. We still want to take, depraved minds and men and demonic forces still want to take the life and the innocence of people. They just do it in a different way, whether it be legal, illegal, moral, immoral. So that is still alive. So if someone's out there listening right now and they go, this is disgusting, you've opened my eyes to this, I didn't know it was on this type of scale, what would you say they should do? What are one or two things that the average listener, the average person could go, yeah, I want to get involved, or I want to help?
I would say go to our website, because we've really spent a lot of time bringing tools and intel on there for people to look through and choose your best lane. Like, this is me. I can contribute in this way or that way. So we're involved in legislation. We've got several groups that we network with. We've got partner organizations that are all strong, moral and ethical performers that do great work, and we coordinate with them on different things. So there's a lot on v4cr.org that you can choose from there. So there are political options. There's a prayer network. Prayer. If you don't think prayer is important, then you don't understand the whole quantum physics of how the energy works and the spiritual nature of how God said that we're supposed to function. So I would say definitely do that. Let your churches know. Have the churches designate prayer groups praying against this war on children regularly. And you have to get your hands involved in the local situation. Like today, there's a predator that just moved into the neighborhood, and my wife got a notice, and she started putting it out in the home, the network, and some Karen lady really must have reported her. She was crying about, that's not unfair to the rapist. And my wife's like, well, what about for the children? That's a bus stop right there. This guy just got out of prison. He was convicted for child sex crimes, and he lives right there at the bus stop. Everybody deserves to know so they can protect their children from this guy who's, right there. And what could happen? It's a fight. So my wife's going to the homeowners association and printing flyers with this guy's face on it and going door to door, man, because she will not be silenced. They wanted to silence her and delete her. What's the left do? What's it? They wanted to when they try to make us go away, cancel. Yeah, she's like, I will not be canceled. Dang it! And I'm like, go on, Cherokee. I like your spirit. Like, let the truth be known. So that's what she has to do. We have different things that we can contribute. So I encourage everybody to find your own lane.
And I would say stay strong on that, because the further we get into this too, and as the culture shifts, you start to see people programmed to defend unrighteousness, lawlessness, murdering, all these things, to where I had an argument with someone in my family, and they were upset that someone was judging a map. They said a minor attracted person. They don't like using the word pedophile. And I went, oh my gosh, here we go with this now, because the first thing the left does and this culture does is we rename something very Orwellian, right? We make it softer. We rename it. We normalize it, and then shove it down your throat and make you the weirdo, the sicko, if you don't believe in the evil act that they're pushing in their propaganda. So I see it just outside of my extended family of someone saying, taking the side of a pedophile who had served their time. Well, I'm sorry, we have a legal system, and yes, you may have went to jail or served your time, but you did that act, and you have to live with that. Consequences have, actions have consequences. And one of those is, just like your wife is doing, letting people know and be notified that someone like that is in the area. So, that's good advice. We'll make sure we link all of this up. I want to put bookends on this. I would be remiss, and the listeners would be remiss, if they said, man, you had on a Navy SEAL, a sniper, a combat instructor. This guy has all this training. You got to ask him about the Trump attempted assassination. I don't know how much you want to get into this, but maybe just give us a 10,000 foot view of what you think, because there's all new information coming out, new videos every day. The more we look at this, it just looks crazier and crazier, like everything else that's going on in the news. Tactically, do you think there were some failures there? What are your thoughts on that, if you'd like to share it with us?
Yeah, the bottom line on that for me, I've done quite a few interviews, news interviews and podcasts the week after it happened. And I'll just say, what people really need to realize, what I saw from the beginning is that's a command level failure. Never mind the people that were on the ground. So all the stuff that was supposed to happen on the ground, that was weak. That was a weak detail. It was thin. There was not enough coverage, and it wasn't the quality of coverage that someone like President Trump should have had. And I'm not disparaging those who are physically on the deck. I'm saying they weren't properly trained and coordinated and prepared to execute the mission in the way that they should have been. And there weren't enough of them. They weren't there early enough. They weren't there in enough numbers. There was not the leadership and the intent to keep that man safe. And so that points to the upper brass in the Secret Service and maybe other agencies. But at least at the Secret Service, there was not the will to protect that man. And that's what the evidence indicates to me. Just making an observation. I've run a lot of high threat mobile security for Department of State and the intelligence community, running these packages. We run the packages a lot like the Secret Service's model. And I just look at it. I'm like, man, there's no way. Like, so many standard operating procedures had to be completely bypassed for him to be hung out there and rendered that vulnerable. And I think it was by intent. I think it's corruption. I think the people that are high up in the Secret Service and again, probably other agencies wanted him dead. And I believe it was arranged to allow it to happen. And I do believe that him turning his head right at that instant and it only grazing his ear, I do believe that was an act of divine intervention, because whether we love or hate Donald Trump, I believe God's going to use him. And I pray that he drains the swamp. Anyway, we'll just see what happens. But that's my 10,000 foot overview of it.
Looking at video and audio and shots fired and things like that, do you think there's anything to the second shooter theory on the water tower? Do you think He acted alone. I'm in agreement with you that when I look at, I'm no expert like you, but when I just look at it through basic level of wisdom and discernment and common sense, I go, yeah, there's more to this than just a failure at command. I think that is part of it, but I also think there's other things going on. As we wrap this up, is there anything more to that? Do you think that there could be another shooter, or does that come into play, or do we think, no, we've probably got someone who was either coerced or programmed, or do you think he just acted alone? He was a loon that wanted to take out Trump.
Yeah, I don't think he acted alone, and the CIA used multiple shooters, 60 years ago, 6 decades ago, they used a crossfire. And why wouldn't they do it now? So there's a lot of conflicting reports, and it's still relatively early days, and we'll get to the bottom of it hopefully eventually. But so far, from what I've seen, I don't think that young man had the wherewithal, or I don't think it was his idea to go and just do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't buy that story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we have a track records post-COVID over the last 4 years that just about every one of these wild conspiracies, air quotes, that people have been talking about seem to be coming true now. So it's this weird thing where we're in an era of exposure. I think that has to do with people like you, with what you're doing with Veterans for Child Rescue. The Bible says that the Lord has created everything. God has created everything in heaven and earth, even the wicked, for the day of punishment. And let me tell you, if we have people like you on our team that are doing what the Lord has called them to do, exposing evilness, exposing wickedness, I think their time is coming very quickly. Craig Sawyer, thank you so much for being on the Dead Men Walking podcast. Give us your final word.
Hey, I just appreciate you having the moral courage to address a difficult subject. So many people don't. And I think that's what we lack, is the moral courage. And I think the day when the American people reach the needed level of moral courage to speak truth and not operate in fear is the day that the tide begins to turn in our favor. And I encourage everybody to do that. So God bless you, brother, for being one and for covering this. And I hope it empowers people that hear this broadcast, and appreciate everybody's support for Veterans for Child Rescue.
Absolutely. And guys, we're going to link up everything below. If you're listening or watching this, all you got to do is go to the description. All of Craig's organizational links and social media will be there. Feel free to click on that, follow him, check out Veterans for Child Rescue. It's very important what he's doing. We appreciate his time. Guys, as always, you can check us out at dmwpodcast.com. Leave us a text message, voicemail, check out the merch, help support the show, helps us travel, go to conferences, bring you great content. And as always, remember, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. God bless. Be sure to check us out at dmwpodcast.com, where you can purchase the best and snarkiest merch on the internet, support the show, and leave us a review or message. Dead Men Walking can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dead Men Walking Podcast, and on Twitter X at Real DMW Podcast. The Dead Men Walking Podcast is part of the Fight Laugh Feast Network. For exclusive show content, be sure to download the Pub TV app and become a member. If you're a business that needs to reach hundreds of thousands of potential customers in your demographic, podcast advertising might be for you. Send all inquiries to deadmenwalkingpodcast@gmail.com.
None your biscuits.